Anna Novak appeared like any other passenger dozing in row 15, a portrait of anonymous exhaustion amidst the controlled chaos of air travel. No one who glanced at her could have possibly suspected she was a seasoned airline captain, a commander of aircraft far larger than the one she was currently on. When the flight's captain, a man she had never met, suddenly collapsed from a catastrophic medical event, rendering him unable to fly, the remaining crew would be forced to make a desperate, almost unheard-of plea over the cabin intercom for any pilots on board. In that moment of shattering crisis, Anna would face a stark choice: maintain the quiet, restful anonymity she so desperately craved, or step forward into the glaring spotlight of responsibility and attempt to save the lives of every single person on the plane. Before you hear the full, incredible story, take a moment to comment with where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories of hidden heroes, please like this video and subscribe for more. Anna Novak looked completely and utterly ordinary as she shuffled aboard Flight 815, a routine midday departure from Chicago's O'Hare to Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson. Dressed in nondescript dark slacks and a well-worn gray university hoodie, she carried only a simple canvas tote bag containing a thick historical novel, a water bottle, and a travel pillow. At 37, she had a pleasant but forgettable face and a quiet demeanor that allowed her to become part of the background, a skill she had perfected over years of wanting to be off-duty the moment she stepped out of her uniform. Nobody, not the gate agent who scanned her ticket, not the flight attendants offering a professional welcome, and certainly not the other passengers, would ever guess she was a commercial airline captain with over a decade of experience and thousands of hours logged in the cockpits of the world's most advanced aircraft. As she navigated the narrow aisle to her assigned seat, other passengers were too absorbed in their own worlds to pay her any mind. She sidestepped a consultant in row 9, a man already deep in a high-stakes spreadsheet on his laptop before the cabin door was even closed. She offered a sympathetic smile to a young father in row 7, who was masterfully attempting to distract a fussy toddler with a set of plastic keys. In row 16, an older couple radiating the giddy energy of a long-awaited vacation were tracing a route on a map of Savannah with a shared, wrinkled finger. To every single person on that Airbus A321, Anna was just another anonymous traveler, a face in the crowd heading south for reasons as mundane as their own. She finally found her place and slid into the middle seat, 15B, the least desirable position on the plane, but one she had chosen for its potential for uninterrupted sleep. She immediately retrieved her book, a deliberate prop. She had meticulously ensured nothing about her appearance would betray her profession. There was no uniform, no pilot's watch with its complex bezel, no flight bag emblazoned with airline. Wings. This was her day off, her first in a grueling 14-day stretch. And all she wanted, all she craved with a bone-deep weariness, was to vanish for the 2.5-hour flight. Her recent schedule had been a relentless series of red-eyes and long-haul international routes, battling thunderstorms over the Atlantic and navigating crowded airspace over Asia. This short trip to Atlanta to celebrate her younger brother's 30th birthday was meant to be the first breath of fresh air, the first moment of true decompression she'd had in weeks. The lead flight attendant, a sharp, composed young woman named Chloe, moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency during the safety briefing. She made eye contact with passengers, a silent check for compliance and attention, and her gaze passed over Anna without a flicker of recognition. She saw a woman who had already buckled her seatbelt and was now quietly absorbed in a novel, the picture of a low-maintenance, seasoned traveler. Chloe mentally categorized her as a librarian, maybe an accountant, someone professional but unassuming. There was absolutely nothing about Anna that hinted at the vast specialized knowledge she held about the very machine they were all entrusting their lives to. She simply looked tired, profoundly tired, like someone who desperately needed the rest the flight might offer. As the aircraft began its slow, powerful taxi toward the active runway, Anna tucked her book into the seatback pocket and slipped on a silk eye mask. She had flown this exact route dozens of times, but always from the sterile, focused environment of the cockpit. Today, she was a passenger, and she was determined to inhabit that role completely. She leaned her seat back the regulation inch and took a long, slow breath. The familiar rising whine of the CFM engines spooling up for takeoff was a strangely comforting lullaby to her, a symphony of controlled power. The passengers around her heard only noise. Anna heard the healthy, even pitch of perfectly balanced turbine blades, a sound that told her the aircraft's heart was strong. In the cockpit, Captain Frank Miller, a gregarious veteran with nearly 30 years in the air and a reputation for being unflappable, was sharing a light-hearted story about his daughter's recent soccer game with his first officer, Kenji Tanaka. Kenji, younger but impeccably professional, listened politely while his eyes methodically scanned the instruments, his hands moving with practiced ease over the controls. It was shaping up to be a perfectly routine flight, a blue sky day, in pilot parlance with smooth air forecast all the way to their destination. The final passenger count was 172 souls, crew included. Neither of the two men at the controls had an inkling that one of those passengers was not only a fellow pilot, but a captain of equal rank and experience. The takeoff was a masterpiece of routine, a smooth, powerful climb into the crisp Midwestern sky. Within 10 minutes, Flight 815 had gracefully ascended to its cruising altitude of 36,000 feet, a silver dart in the vast, empty blue. In row 15, Anna was already fast asleep, her head propped against her travel pillow, the eye mask blocking out the world. The young musician next to her, a cellist named Maya, on her way to an audition, was lost in the soaring notes of a Bach suite, playing through her noise-canceling headphones. The consultant in row 9 continued to hammer away at his keyboard, his world compressed to the glowing rectangle of his screen. Everything was perfectly, reassuringly, dangerously normal. Chloe and her team began the beverage service about 45 minutes into the flight, their movements a well-rehearsed ballet of efficiency in the narrow aisle. The cart rattled gently, a familiar sound of mid-flight comfort. Chloe moved past Anna's row, taking care not to bump the sleeping passenger. She felt a small pang of empathy. The woman looked so deeply asleep, so utterly spent. Chloe had been a flight attendant for 6 years and prided herself on her ability to read people. Anna seemed like a quiet professional, a good passenger, the kind of person who would never cause a fuss. 2 hours into the flight, just as the plane began its initial descent calculations for the approach into Atlanta, as Anna slept on, a silent crisis erupted in the cockpit. Captain Miller paused mid-sentence, a strange pressure blooming in his chest. He dismissed it as heartburn from the spicy airport lunch. But then the pressure intensified, becoming a crushing weight, and a sharp, stabbing pain radiated down his left arm. He tried to take a breath, but found his lungs wouldn't cooperate. A cold sweat broke out across his forehead, and the vibrant colors of the instrument panel began to blur into a terrifying, indistinct smear. He gasped, a sound that was more of a strangled grunt clutching at his chest. "Kenji, I can't." "Breathe right," Captain Miller managed to choke out, his voice a strained whisper. "Something's wrong." First Officer Tanaka's head whipped around, his easygoing demeanor vanishing in an instant, replaced by the razor-sharp focus of intense training. "Frank? What is it? What's happening?" "My chest feels like an elephant is sitting on it. The user," Captain rasped, his face ashen and beaded with a greasy sweat. His hands fell from the controls. A moment later, his eyes rolled back in his head, and he slumped forward, his body held upright, only by his 5-point harness, completely unconscious. Kenji Tanaka's mind and body reacted before conscious thought could fully form. He slammed the autopilot disconnect button, his left hand taking firm control of the side stick, his right hand moving to the throttle. He stabilized the aircraft, his heart hammering against his ribs. He was fully certified to fly the A321, had landed it hundreds of times, but federal aviation regulations were not suggestions. They were ironclad laws written in the blood of past accidents. 2 qualified pilots were required in the cockpit at all times during flight. This was no longer an incident, it was a full-blown critical emergency. Kenji jabbed the intercom button that chimed in the cabin crew station. "Chloe, get to the cockpit, now, medical emergency." Chloe arrived in seconds, her face a mask of professional concern that barely concealed the shock in her eyes as she saw the captain unconscious. Kenji was now flying a massive jet airliner carrying 170 people, completely alone. It was a violation of every safety protocol and a potentially disastrous situation if any other system were to fail or if he were to become incapacitated himself. "Is there a doctor? Should I ask for a doctor?" Chloe asked, her voice tight but controlled. "Yes, call for a doctor immediately, but we have a bigger, more immediate problem," Kenji said, his eyes never leaving the flight instruments, his voice strained with the immense weight of his solitary responsibility. "I need another pilot. I cannot fly this plane and land it alone. It is against regulations for a reason. We have to find someone." Chloe's training, the countless hours in simulators practicing for fires, decompressions, and hijackings, took over. But her heart was a frantic drum against her ribs. She had never, in all her drills, practiced for this specific, terrifying scenario. She knew an announcement was their only hope, but the risk of inducing mass panic was enormous. "What do you want me to say?" she asked Kenji, her mind racing. "We have to ask if there is a qualified, certified pilot on board," Kenji stated, his voice now devoid of anything but grim necessity. "It is our only option. The captain is down, and we are an hour from Atlanta." Back in row 15, Anna remained in a deep, oblivious sleep, her mind blessedly blank, unaware of the life-or-death drama unfolding just a few dozen feet in front of her. The cabin was still an oasis of calm. Passengers read, watched movies, or dozed, lulled by the drone of the engines, completely unaware that their flight, their very lives, now hung in a precarious balance. Chloe took a single, steadying breath, a technique she had taught countless anxious flyers, and picked up the intercom handset. Her voice, when it came, was remarkably composed, a testament to her training, though a careful listener might have detected the faint, high-frequency tremor of adrenaline beneath the professional veneer. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. We are experiencing a medical emergency with one of our flight crew members. We require immediate assistance. Is there a certified commercial or military pilot on this aircraft? If so, please identify yourself to a flight attendant immediately." Anna's eyes snapped open. The word pilot had acted like an electroshock, bypassing the layers of sleep and fatigue and hitting the core of her professional identity. Her brain, conditioned by thousands of hours of training to respond instantly to non-standard situations, cut through the fog of exhaustion. An emergency. They needed a pilot. In the space of a single second, every instinct, every checklist, every emergency procedure she had ever learned came roaring to life. The announcement sent a jolt of collective anxiety through the cabin. The low hum of conversations ceased, replaced by a tense, electric silence. Passengers exchanged nervous, questioning glances. A low murmur of whispers began to spread. The consultant in row 9 slammed his laptop shut, his face suddenly pale and etched with concern. The young father in row 7 instinctively pulled his child closer. The vacationing couple in row 16 reached for each other's hands, their joyful anticipation replaced by raw fear. Was this real? Was there really someone on this flight who could help fly this massive plane? Anna sat bolt upright, her eye mask falling unheeded into her lap. She took in the scene around her, the worried faces, the palpable fear, and her mind was a whirlwind of professional analysis. This was not a request made lightly. For a flight crew to make such a public desperate plea meant the situation was beyond critical. For a fleeting, selfish moment, Anna hesitated. This was her day off, her one chance to be anonymous, to rest, to not be Captain Novak. The thought of stepping back into that world of immense stress and responsibility she had so desperately wanted to escape was physically repellent. But as she heard Chloe repeat the announcement, her voice now audibly strained with a terrifying urgency, Anna knew there was no real choice. Her comfort meant nothing. Her fatigue was irrelevant. People's lives were on the line, and she possessed the exact rare set of skills needed to save them. With a deep, resigning breath, Anna pressed her call button. The small blue light illuminated above her seat, a single beacon of hope in the tense, silent cabin. Chloe's head whipped around, her eyes locking onto the light. Anna then unbuckled her seatbelt and stood, beginning the long walk toward the front of the plane. As she moved up the aisle, passengers watched her, a mixture of disbelief, surprise, and dawning hope on their faces. This unassuming, quiet woman who had been sound asleep just moments before was the one responding to the most terrifying call a passenger could ever hear. "You're a pilot?" Chloe asked, her voice a mixture of hope and incredulity as Anna reached the galley. "Yes," Anna replied, her voice calm, steady, and imbued with an authority that instantly cut through the tension. "Captain Anna Novak. I fly for a different major carrier, over a decade of commercial experience, and I'm type-rated on this airframe. What's the situation?" Chloe's face flooded with a wave of profound relief so intense it was almost painful. "Thank God, the captain is unconscious. We think it's a heart attack. The first officer is flying solo and needs a qualified pilot in the cockpit immediately." Anna nodded grimly, her mind already shifting into command mode. She followed Chloe through the curtain to the flight deck door. As she passed the first few rows, she heard the whispers ripple through the cabin as the passengers realized that the unassuming woman from row 15 was their unexpected savior. The consultant looked on in open-mouthed disbelief. The cellist, Maya, had taken off her headphones and was staring with wide, terrified, hopeful eyes. Entering the cockpit, Anna took in the entire scene in a single, practiced, all-encompassing glance. Captain Miller was indeed unconscious, slumped in the left seat, his face a deathly gray. First Officer Tanaka sat ramrod straight in the right seat, his expression a mask of intense concentration, but he was in firm, professional control of the aircraft. A quick scan of the primary flight display and the engine indicating and crew alerting system confirmed that all instruments were in the green. The plane was healthy. This was a human emergency, not a mechanical one. "I'm Captain Anna Novak," she said to Kenji, her voice cutting cleanly through the tension. "What's your status?" "Thank heaven you were here," Kenji breathed, the first crack in his stoic facade. "First Officer Kenji Tanaka. Captain Miller collapsed a few minutes ago. The aircraft is stable, but I need you in the right seat. We've got about 55 minutes to Atlanta." Anna quickly absorbed the information, her mind already several steps ahead. The aircraft was an Airbus A321, an airplane she knew as well as her own car. The weather was clear, all systems nominal. The immediate priorities were simple and stark. Get Captain Miller medical attention and re-establish a two-person, fully functional cockpit crew. "Have you declared an emergency with air traffic control?" Anna asked, already moving to straps. Herself into the first officer's seat, her movements efficient and sure. "Not yet. I was about to stabilize everything first," Kenji replied. "Let's do it now," Anna said, her voice taking on the natural tone of command. "Let them know we have an incapacitated pilot and that I am a qualified captain assisting from the cabin. Request a direct route, priority landing, and have emergency services standing by at the gate." As Kenji got on the radio, his voice a model of calm professionalism as he relayed the terrifying situation to Atlanta Center, Anna quickly oriented herself to the specific layout of this particular A321's flight deck. While she was an expert on the type, subtle differences in software and switch placement existed between airlines. She scanned the fuel gauges, cross-referenced their position on the navigation display with their flight plan, and mentally calculated their new estimated time of arrival. The response from ATC was immediate and reassuringly professional. Flight 815, Roger. Declaring an emergency on your behalf. All traffic will be cleared from your path. Medical and emergency personnel will be standing by. You are cleared direct. To Hartsfield-Jackson, descend and maintain flight level 240 at your discretion. In the cabin, Chloe had found a doctor. Dr. Ben Carter, a cardiologist from Chicago who happened to be on his way to a medical conference, rushed to the front. He and the crew carefully moved Captain Miller out of the cramped cockpit and into the galley, where they began administering emergency aid. Dr. Carter confirmed it appeared to be a major cardiac event. The captain was alive, but his condition was critical, and he needed a cardiac unit immediately. Back in the cockpit, a new sense of focused, professional calm settled in. Anna and Kenji, two strangers from different airlines, worked together, with the seamless synergy of a crew that had flown together for years. Anna handled the radio communications and managed the aircraft's complex systems, freeing Kenji to concentrate on the pure mechanics of flying. "How are you feeling about the approach?" Anna asked, her tone collaborative, not questioning. 100 times better with you here, Kenji admitted with a grateful glance. Having a second set of eyes, a second mind, it changes everything, from a crisis to a manageable problem. Anna respected his honesty and his skill. Though she was technically a passenger, he treated her as a full and equal crew member, a fellow professional. Together, they ran through the pre-landing checklists, with the practiced rhythm of a well-rehearsed symphony. As they began their final, smooth descent into the busy Atlanta airspace, Anna keyed the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Novak speaking from the flight deck. Just to give you an update, our captain is now under the excellent care of a doctor who was on board. First Officer Tanaka and I are preparing for a normal, safe landing in Atlanta. We expect to be on the ground in about 20 minutes. Emergency crews will be meeting our aircraft at the gate. We thank you for your calm and your cooperation." The passengers listened, hanging on her every word. Her composed, authoritative voice was a balm on their frayed nerves. The consultant later told reporters that he felt a wave of absolute certainty that everything would be okay. The young father felt the tension leave his shoulders. The older couple squeezed hands, this time not in fear, but in profound shared gratitude that a hero had been sitting just one row ahead of them. The approach and landing were flawless, a textbook example of professional airmanship. Anna and Kenji operated as a single, focused unit, their communication crisp and clear, their actions perfectly synchronized. When the wheels of the A321 kissed the concrete of runway 26L at Hartsfield-Jackson, a sound Anna had produced and heard thousands of times, the cabin erupted in a spontaneous, thunderous, heartfelt ovation. They knew they had been part of something miraculous. A sleeping passenger had woken up and become their pilot, their guardian angel. After the plane taxied to the gate, paramedics swarmed aboard, expertly taking over the care of Captain Miller and rushing him to a nearby hospital. As the shaken but safe passengers began to deplane, a long line formed, not for the exit, but to personally thank Anna. They were stunned, trying to reconcile the image of the quiet, unassuming woman from the middle seat with the highly skilled aviator who had just helped guide them to safety. "You were just sleeping there in 15B, said Maya the cellist, her eyes wide with awe. "I had no idea." "That was the plan," Anna replied with a small, exhausted smile. "Just a quiet flight to see my brother." Chloe, the lead flight attendant, embraced her, her professional composure finally breaking. "You were incredible," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You turned a potential catastrophe into a manageable incident. I don't know what we would have done without you." Kenji Tanaka waited for her at the bottom of the jet bridge, shaking her hand firmly. "Flying with you was an honor, Captain. You handled a high-stress, no-notice situation with absolute grace. Thank you." The story of Flight 815 became an immediate national sensation. The media was captivated by the irresistible narrative of the sleeping passenger who woke up to become the flight's savior. Anna was instantly, and to her great discomfort, dubbed the Angel of 15B. She reluctantly appeared on a few news programs to discuss the experience, but on every occasion she skillfully deflected the praise, emphasizing the professionalism of Kenji, the quick thinking of Chloe, and the teamwork of the entire crew. During one interview, a journalist asked her what her first thought was when she heard that terrifying call for a pilot. "There was no thought, really," she answered honestly. "It was a reaction. My training took over. In my profession, you spend your entire career preparing for the one day you hope never comes. When it comes, you don't think, you act. It's about the safety of every single person on that plane. Nothing else matters." The reporter then asked if she was upset that her well-deserved day off had been so dramatically ruined. "Not for a second," Anna said, her conviction clear. "Aviation is my life. It's who I am. Whether I'm in the left seat in full uniform or in seat 15B in a hoodie, the mission is always the same. Get everyone home safely." Her brother David was waiting for her just past security in Atlanta, having seen the breaking news alerts on his phone. He enveloped her in a fierce hug, his face a mixture of terror and immense pride. "That's my sister," David told a local news crew that had gathered. "Always calm under pressure, always the first to step in when someone's in trouble. She's been that way her whole life." The airline industry lauded Anna's actions. Her own airline issued a statement celebrating her professionalism and extraordinary courage. The incident sparked renewed, high-level conversations about crew resource management, emergency procedures, and the unforeseen value of having off-duty pilots as secret assets in the cabin. Captain Frank Miller survived. He underwent emergencies, surgery, and after a lengthy and difficult recovery, was able to return to flying 6 months later. One of his first calls was to Anna. "You didn't just help land a plane, Anna," Captain Miller said, his voice thick with an emotion he made no attempt to hide. "You saved 172 lives that day, and mine was one of them. You represent the very best of what we do." The incident served as a powerful, unforgettable reminder that extraordinary capabilities can reside within the most ordinary-looking people. Chloe, the flight attendant, said the experience had fundamentally changed her perspective. "Forever. You can never ever judge a passenger by their appearance," she said in an interview. "The quiet woman in the hoodie just might be the hero you need when everything goes wrong." For Anna, the flight became a profound reaffirmation of her life's calling. It wasn't about the destinations, the technology, or the paycheck. It was about the sacred, unspoken pact a pilot makes with their passengers, the promise to protect them, to take on the immense responsibility for their lives, whether she was officially on duty or not. The story of Flight 815 was quickly integrated into pilot training curricula worldwide, a real-world case study in crisis management, teamwork, and grace under extreme pressure. It was a perfect illustration that expertise can surface in the most unlikely of places, and that heroes don't always wear a uniform or a cape. Sometimes they're just dozing quietly in a middle seat, waiting for the call to do what they were born to do. Years later, when Anna would fly as a passenger, crew members who recognized her name on the manifest would sometimes stop by her seat and ask in a hushed, reverent tone, "Are you the Angel of 15B?" She would simply smile and say she was a pilot who happened to be in the right place at the right time. But her peers, her fellow aviators, knew the truth. They knew she embodied the highest ideals of their profession, eternally vigilant, unfailingly professional, and always prepared to bring everyone home safely, no matter which seat she happened to be sitting in on the plane.